So my name is Josh King. I'm the Assistant Director for Athlete Career Development. I also work with our business and finance students and employers. So if you're interested in those industries, I will be your industry advisor throughout this year. Hopefully next year we'll get Beth back. Beth Adams is normally our business finance advisor, but she's the one that's handling all of your weekly on-campus COVID testing. So kind of picked up that responsibility this year as well. So real quick, we're going to highlight a few things. Obviously we're going to go over some basic formatting and resume guidelines. We'll talk about some strategies for what to include and how to brainstorm through your experiences that you've accrued so far. We'll look at some basic steps so that you can take what we learned tonight and establish a basic resume. And then we'll also go through some resources that will be really handy for you throughout your time at Davidson. So when we look at where to start a professional resume, most of you guys probably have a resume of some sort. It might have been for a high school job. It might have been for a college application. But typically, when you're in your first year, you don't have what we call a professional resume. So professional resume is going to be one page, and obviously it's going to be geared towards earning an internship or a job. Whereas a high school resume is oftentimes a list of your accomplishments and isn't quite as concise as what we want your professional resume to be. So, that being said, obviously the first step is selecting a format, template, or design. I'm not going to lie to you, formatting is the worst part of a resume. And honestly, once you get through that, it's pretty easy. It's more just a matter of maintaining things, gaining experiences, and articulating those so that you can keep your resume up to date. When we look at selecting a template or design, there's three basic factors, right? We want good formatting. So that means we want it to be clean, simple, easy to read. All right. We also want something that does a good job of categorizing our experiences so that for the reader or the recruiter, it's really easy to, go section to section and see what they want to see. And then lastly, you want to have your skills on there. So part of that is articulating those through your content. Part of that may be simply listing that in a skill section. And then when we look at strategies, you're going to hear the term base resume. A base resume, like I said, a real resume that you submit it should be one page. A base resume might be 2 pages. That is literally all the things that you have to offer, all the things that you've done, and you just store that in one spot. And then for each application you're going to apply for, you want to customize that resume. Now, for a lot of you guys, that may look the same, because you only have so many experiences. We don't expect you to have a bunch of internships and jobs already. You guys haven't even had your first summer of college. So, for a lot of you guys for this year, maybe next year, the base resume and the custom resume may be the same. But as you gain experiences, join more clubs, do more things, you're going to have the options to customize those. So real quick, just to kind of get us loose, get us warmed up, I'm going to show you 4 resume designs. And in the chat box, just tell me which one or ones you think are incorrect. Again, there's 4 options. So these are our first 2. All right. Just take a quick look, see what you guys think. About 10 seconds. So these are our first 2 options. I'll take a look at options 3 and 4. And once you've taken a look at these, just put in the chat box, which one of these do you guys think is incorrect? Or there may be multiple that are incorrect. So we got number 4 is wrong. So we got a lot of 4s, none. All right, so we had one person get it correct. The answer is none of those are incorrect. It's a trick question. And the reason I do that is because it's really important to understand that different people look for different things in a resume. The main thing that makes a resume good is that it's easy to read, it's consistent, it's simple, it's clean. So all of those 4 examples are actually our templates that we provide to you guys, so that is formatting part is easy. And the reason I bring this up is because when I was in college, I was in an HR management class, and we had a guest speaker who oversaw the operations for Kohl's, the department store. And she hired a lot of people, and she hired a lot of people that hired people. And she told us if you asked 400 recruiters what a perfect resume looked like, you would receive 400 different answers. And that's always kind of stuck with me, right? Because you're going to hear us say things, you're going to see things on our templates, and you might talk to people in your industry, or you might talk to your parent or a friend, and they might have a different opinion or a different thought. I'm not going to say there's no right or wrong, because there are some things that are generally accepted as right or wrong, but there's a lot of variance, and you just have to be comfortable with what you're doing. And the biggest thing is that you're consistent. All right. So again, some of those things are going to depend on industry. So if you're in business versus science versus tech versus arts, there's going to be different things that may be more common in those industries. But don't ever feel like something you're doing is wrong, right? It's more of it's your personal preference. So why does formatting matter? We're gonna spend a lot more time on the content, but we really have to drill home the formatting first. Formatting is important for a lot of reasons, right? Before someone reads anything on your resume, it's the first impression. You know, there's also what we call a 6-second resume test. So some recruiters, and kind of put yourself in the recruiter's shoes, or the reader, throughout the entire process, right? So if you're a recruiter and you have a position where you're looking to hire one person, you maybe want to interview 8 to 10 candidates, and you get 100 applications. You're not going to read every single line of every resume, right? But you're going to scan it pretty quickly to see, is this something that's worth reading? So we want to highlight certain things really quickly to make that easy to read, right? So that's why the education's at the top. That's why you notice all the locations and dates are on the right side. All the, position or companies and positions are on the left side. So that really quickly I can scan your resume and see where have you worked, how long, and all that information to see, is this worth my time to keep reading further? Once I get that, I want to see really strong action verbs. I don't want to have to read much to get the content. In other words, we want to say as much as possible, give as much detail as possible, and as few words as possible. All right. The other thing is we want to be able to show growth and progressions. This can actually be done by formatting. And the other thing is poorly formatted resumes are often tossed, even if the content is good, because they don't get to the point of reading it because it's too hard to decipher. Another thing that I've heard from a lot of employers as well as alumni are, again, you don't want to have a multi-page resume as a college student. There are some exceptions. Government jobs may be one. If you have a CV, if you're in academia, that's a whole different topic. But resumes need to be a page, and that's because a lot of people aren't even going to look at that second page if you do that. All right, so real quick, are there any
Okay.
I think I lost.
Are you back, Josh?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, you're good.
I went to ask questions and the computer freaked out. All right. Can you guys see that now? Okay, sorry about that.
We also see the chat box. Or
Sorry.
nope, that's just my screen. Never mind. Sorry. We see it.
No worries. Man, we're 6, 8, 10 months in. We still gotta love Zoom, right? It always provides a new adventure. But kind of on that note, before I head to the next section, which is going to be the bulk of what we talk about tonight, are there any questions on formatting or anything like that? And again, feel free to throw those in the chat box. All right. I don't see any yet, but if we do, Molly, just flag me down. We're going to keep it moving here. So brainstorming 101. This is the most important part, obviously, of developing content. It's where we start. And for students who are in their first year, again, may not have those internship opportunities, may not have had a significant job in college that they think, this gets to be hard. Part of it is, where do I even start, right? You might think, well, I've only been here for 4 months and I haven't really done anything, especially given the circumstances in which we're in right now. But the answer to that question is just start from now, work with what you have, and go backwards. And we'll go as far back as we need to. And that looks different for each person. The other part of that is understanding what is relevant now and what's no longer relevant. So as a general thing, your high school education, and if you're an athlete, your high school athletics, they don't really matter anymore. You're in college now, and that's what we want to focus on. There are some exceptions to that, and if you have questions with that, we can work through that individually. That's just a general rule of thumb. Now, high school activities, SGA, clubs, leadership positions, community service, all that stuff, obviously jobs you had in high school, that stuff's definitely relevant, and we expect that to be on there. That's something that we want to have on there. And then hopefully as you gain more experience at Davidson, we want to start to phase those things out so that by the end of your sophomore year, going into your junior year, everything is focused on the last 2 years and what you've done in college. So as you guys saw in the templates, and you may have, and I know I showed them pretty quickly, all 4 of those templates have different sections. They have different names, different titles. It's really, the fun part is you can customize whatever you want, and it's fitting you. So the educational piece, that's always going to go at the top. That's something everyone's going to have. Now, once you're going for your second, third job out of college, you can move that education section to the bottom, or you can move it to a different area. Sometimes it's second. But while you're in college, that needs to be at the top. Again, once you graduate, you can make those decisions. Past that, it really depends. Some people might have significant work experience and they want to make that section first. Some people may have no work experience because they want to go to med school and all they've done is research. So research experience is their second thing. Some people might not have any work experience or research experience, but they've self-taught themselves how to use a lot of platforms because they want to go into tech. So their skill section might be second. So you kind of see that theme of there's no right or wrong answer. It's what fits you. On that note too, what you have as your first resume and your second year resume may look different as a senior once you've gained 2 or 3 internships and you have more to offer in those different sections. At the end of the day, you want to have at least 3 sections, no more than 5. Honestly, probably 4 is a pretty good amount. And again, there's some times where you might combine community service and leadership involvement, or research and volunteer experience, or leadership and athletics. There's different combinations that you can create. Another note is with the templates. I'm pretty lazy, so the easiest way to format that is, instead of trying to do it yourself, just copy an entire section, paste it, and then change the title, because then everything's done for you and you're not trying to mess with fonts and lines and all that stuff. That is the reason that we give you guys templates. So when you're looking at your sections, like I mentioned, education is going to be the first. The formatting may look different, depending on the template you use. And kind of a note as well, you don't have to use one of our templates. If you have a resume from high school that you think is pretty good, by all means, go for it. These are only here to make your life easier. They're not here as a requirement. So don't feel like, when you're getting your resume reviewed, it has to be a Davidson format. That's not the case. But again, you just want those things of consistency, easy to read, which all of our templates offer. So when we look at major, which none of you guys have declared, we want to just put, because you haven't declared, we just want to put that word intended in front of it. So it may be a Bachelor of Arts, maybe a Bachelor of Science. If you're not sure, you can look it up on the Davidson website, or you can also just ask one of us. We have a little chart that gives us all the answers to what's an art, what's a science. Same thing with minors. You can just put intended minor. With GPA, I know a lot of you guys just got grades today, so hopefully, or you may be getting them soon, so hopefully that goes in your favor. But with GPA, the general rule of thumb is if it's a 3.0 or better, you want to put it on your resume. If it's not, just hold off. Once you get into your major, you may find that you struggle with some of the core classes, but you really love your major and you have a 4.0 in that. You can always split those up and put major GPA or cumulative GPA as long as it's above a 3. If you want to show that you're really good at both, you can put both of those. That's up to you. When it comes to ACT, SAT scores, this is only for finance and consulting. I don't know why they want it, but they do. But if you're going into any other industry, you can just take that off. It does not matter. In terms of relevant coursework, this can be, things that are relevant. Obviously, you have 4 classes, maybe 5, maybe 3. So that's not something you have to stress a whole lot. But as you go on, these are things that you can add. Again, when we think about your base resume, you might put 20 classes on there, but then you just, only leave the 5 or 6 for each application that makes sense. Again, as you go further in your career, you're going to have more options. But for right now, you can just put what you have if you want, or you don't have to have that section at all. It's up to you. With study abroad, again, probably no one here has done study abroad. However, some of you guys may have done programs like that in high school. If that's something where you did a 2 or 3 week experience or a 1 week experience, some sort of exchange program, by all means, that is perfectly fine to put on there. That would be the one of the exceptions to when we talk about having high school on the resume. I think I see some questions.
They're asking where they can find the templates for these resumes.
Yep. Thank you for answering that, Sandro. And we'll actually walk through that as well at the end so that we can show you exactly where they are, but that is correct. All right. Everyone good? I can't tell if we're moving fast or not because I can't see your faces, but I'm trying to not rush too quickly. Again, that's a great question. If you guys have any more, feel free to put them in our chat. I mentioned that Molly is one of our career ambassadors. Sandro is also one of our career ambassadors. He's one of our 2 first-year ambassadors. So he's a great guy to get to know, and he's happy to answer any questions that you may have as well, in addition to Molly. Okay, good. So now we're moving on, right? And now we're about to get to the fun part. I think this is the part that most of you guys want to hear about when we talk about building out your first resume. So work experience. I mean, everyone, this is where a lot of people freak out, right? It's where a lot of people feel like I don't have anything or all I did is XYZ. So some common experiences are babysitting, camp counselor, landscaping, lifeguard, restaurant. Before I got to college, I had been a camp counselor, I'd been a coach, I worked at a gas station, and that's all I had to offer. But there's a lot of value in those things. It's not really as much what the title of what you've done is, it's what have you done, right? Like what skills can you pull out and how can you frame that to really pull out those skills that are going to translate to your first internship, your first job, all that good stuff. Some of you guys may not have any work experience, and that's fine as well. There's other clubs, there's other activities. You probably wouldn't be at Davidson if you didn't have enough to help us fill out this first resume. So again, when we look at this, and this is going to be the interactive part, so get ready to hopefully answer some questions. When we think about it, right, like what skills are applicable from being a babysitter or a nanny or a coach, or a lot of high school students run their own businesses in terms of, you don't just typically be a babysitter and then have 20 clients. You have to go out and find them somehow. You don't offer to cut grasses and then just, magically have people, ask you to do it. You typically have to market that somehow. So marketing can be an example with a lot of self-run operations in high school, even if you think, well, all I did was cut grass or all I did was watch a couple kids. Restaurant positions, lifeguard, those are also very, very common on high school resumes. So I'm going to open it up, and on the next slide, I have a bunch of answers to what applicable skills that we could apply. But I want to get you guys thinking, and let's see, I'm going to stop my share for just a second. Let's see, what questions or what things do you guys might think could go to some of these jobs? And it could be any of the 5. But for argument's sake, let's start with babysitting. So if there's anyone in here who has babysat before or been a nanny, what are some things, what are skills you think you might have that could apply to any job? I know I'm not frozen because I can see Molly moving. Does anyone have an answer? If not, that's okay. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. You got, not yet. Sophomore years when we start putting you guys on the spot.
There's a couple in the chat, Josh. They said patience, time management, flexibility in stressful situations.
Okay, thanks. For some reason, my chat did not pop up, but now I see it. Okay, good. Patience, time management, flexibility, definitely some applicable skills. Communication's also a huge one, right? Like you're constantly in communication with the parents, with the children. Mentorship, leadership might be another one, especially depending on the age of the children, especially if it's a family you've been with for a couple of years. Sense of responsibility, also a good one. So what about camp counselor or coach? There's going to be some common ones. So we've already mentioned those, we don't have to worry about that. But camp counselor, coach, what might be some different skills from that position? Leadership, definitely a good one. Organization, I like that. Yeah. If you've ever coached 8-year-olds, which I've done for 12 years, I mean, it's like wrangling cats, right? Ability to apply knowledge, good. So teaching those technical skills that you may have had as a high school athlete or a high school, whatever, subject you're teaching, that's good. Okay, landscaping. And this isn't as much landscape. This could be any business that you ran by yourself. It could be you teach, You do workouts with people, you do whatever, you maybe sell your own art. Good, marketing. So when we kind of alluded to early, I mean, like I said, you have to get customers somehow. So marketing can come in a lot of different channels. Entrepreneurial skills, another good one. That means you have some sort of drive, right? You have some sort of motivation to get out there and make money. All right. And for the last two lifeguard restaurant positions, any additional thoughts with those? And they're not the same, but we'll just kind of tie those together. Good. So high stress situations, that could be both of them. Whether you have a customer yelling at you or you have someone who's drowning, you have to be able to perform under pressure. Communication skills, definitely one you have to have, especially if you're a hostess and you're trying to seat people and you're trying to get a hold of the waitress or whatever the situation is. Yeah, definitely some good ones. So I'm gonna go back to the screen share. This second slide won't take long because you guys pretty much answered all those. But yeah, when we look at it, again, babysitting, attention to detail, communication, mentorship, logistical organization, camp counselor. Again, communication can be honestly for any job because that's just something that's important no matter what you're doing. The difference is a lot of times those communication skills can come in different forms. But again, teaching, mentorship, landscaping, customer service. What are you doing to make your customers happy? How do you retain them through marketing and through the actual services that you provide? Again, lifeguard, following policies, ensuring safety, doing all those different things. All right. And then restaurant, again, customer service is a huge thing. Another thing that's pretty common that we see is some of you guys might start off as a host or hostess, and then you get promoted to serving tables, or probably not yet, but eventually you might be a bartender or something like that. But so that's another thing that shows, growth. And that's something we can do in formatting to show that you went from a host to a waitress, or, sometimes people are even shift leads or team leaders. So, again, these are all the different skills that you have. So even if you only had one or two of these jobs, or maybe you don't have one of these jobs, but it's something very similar, just really think about not what did I do, but what skills did I gain and how can I show that? And it'll make this part a whole lot easier. Any questions on that before I move along? And I'm actually look at the chat this time, make sure I don't miss it. Cool. Okay, so now we're gonna walk. So now we're kind of through the brainstorming part, right? We figure out what are our sections going to be on the template that we picked out. We're gonna think about what are some jobs and experiences. I didn't even touch, all the clubs and activities that we went into. I just did some with the jobs. Clubs and activities are going to be the same types of things, right? It's like, what events did you organize? How did you market those? What platforms did you use? What type of leadership did you provide? All those good things. Did you do fundraising? How much money was raised? Who's it benefiting? All of those good things. There's a lot of crossover. It's pretty similar, but obviously that's something we can always talk through. Or if you have questions about a club or something you did in high school that's not a job, you can put that in the chat as well. But so the next part is we've kind of brainstormed. Now we're actually going out to build those bullets, right? So the biggest thing that I see, and it's really common, is, and a lot of times just because you don't know what to say or how to say it, but you want to show your skills. You don't want to just state or summarize your skills. Again, everything we do in the application process, whether it's a resume, a cover letter, a first round interview, a final round interview, you got to put yourself in the position of the person hiring you. And most often they're not going to know you, or they're not going to know you very well. All they're going to know is what you tell them. So when you're writing out your bullets, you want to be concise and give specific examples. So again, if I have 20 candidates and everyone tells me that they have time management skills or that they've improved their time management skills through a job, what do I know about that? Not a whole lot, right? Not anything that I couldn't have guessed. So what you want to do is show that, right? So if you're telling me and you're showing me, you don't even have to say time management skills. If I see that, okay, you've balanced 25 plus hours of weekly activities, including practice, lift, competition, travel, coaches meetings, film, in addition to being a full-time student, I can understand, and then I see your 3.4 GPA and the other organizations that you're a part of. I can gather that you can manage your time. And that gives me a lot more information. It gives you a little bit more insight. It paints a picture of your time management skills versus you just telling me that you had them. This could be done for anything. It could be organization. It could be leadership. It could be any of those things. And again, for those of you guys that are scholar athletes, we will talk about this a lot in our scholar athlete resume session next Tuesday. So that's a good one to follow up on. If you are not a scholar athlete, that's something we're always happy to talk about with you in individual meetings and walk-ins, which I'll touch on later. Okay, so the next example, lead with the action, be concise. So you're going to hear it a lot, lead with action verbs, right? You don't have to fluff everything up. Resumes are not a place to fluff. They're a place where you want to be as short, concise, but with as much detail and analytics and numbers as possible. So a couple of things wrong with this first one, right? I managed a few accounts and helped build them into being more successful during my time. I've seen bullets like that pretty commonly. Couple things. You never want to say I, my, we, our. We don't want to talk in that tense. We just want to say what we did at the bottom, right? So manage 4 sales accounts and communicate daily with clients to ensure satisfaction. Increase sales by 35% during summer 2020. A couple things here. Again, this goes into being specific. So I might have had a lot of people who have managed accounts and said they made them more successful. But if you just tell me that, how do I know you were successful? How do I know what you were managing? Again, just being able to give the communication skills and be able to say you communicate with these clients daily. Those are it's a lot more information and it's not a whole lot more space, right? So that's the difference. And that's what's going to separate you from the next candidate who just gives this vague information. Now, again, you guys are first years. So in your first job, you may not be managing anything. You may be more of a shadowing role. Those are things where even if you just shadowed somebody or you oversaw client meetings, things like that, be specific. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you learn? Those are things that, again, in one-on-one advising we can cover, but it still applies even if you weren't the one directly committing those actions. This next one here, see it a ton with our eating houses who do a phenomenal job of raising money. A lot of our fraternities, even just a lot of our general student groups on campus, they're out there in the community, they're helping people, raising money. I see this bullet or a variation of it pretty often. Doesn't tell me a whole lot other than, you're doing good things. It doesn't tell me what types of events, how committed are you? Who's it benefiting? How are you getting that message out there? How are you raising the money? And then again, what are the results? A lot of our eating houses, you guys raise upwards of 30, 40, 50, $60,000 with single events every year, oftentimes raising 6 figures. That's something that, you aren't directly doing as one individual, but you're a part of that organization. And that's something you want to share because it shows the scope of what you're doing. And it kind of makes people realize, okay, these events are serious. Like there's a lot going into it. So I'm going to go back here. So again, I'll just give you guys a couple seconds if we have any questions in the chat. Any questions on bullets or how to write them? So we have a question. How do you come up with these transferable skills and how specific should they be, like leadership versus ability to perform under a stressful situation? I think that's just one, part of this is going to depend what are you applying for. If you're applying for a position where you're going to be coaching people, maybe you focus more on the leadership part. If you're looking about performing under stressful situations, maybe you're going into, some of the high level finance jobs, or that's what you want to go for. Maybe then you have to give specific examples. That's something that it's hard to answer generally. It's going to be us talking about your situations, but just kind of thinking back to, leadership. Who are you leading? How are you doing that? Right. So, say you're a coach. So you're mentoring younger children in a sport, you're teaching them technical skills, you're teaching them life skills. If you're, performing under stressful situations, if you have good, easy, common examples that you can put there, great. Sometimes you might not, or it might just be too hard to write. And then you do just put that general leadership versus ability to perform under stressful situations. That's a good question. That's kind of a tough question. But part of it is also this. So when you're looking at a resume, and I'm going to go back, all right, let's see. I'm going to go back a few slides here. So when you look at this resume here, right, I think of it, as cliche as it may be, I think of a resume like a piece of real estate, right? Like, we want to cover as much space as we can to get the maximum value. Now, we want it to be organized, we want it to be formatted, all that good stuff. So what that means is oftentimes I'll see bullets that are this long, like a third of a line, right? Or maybe it's a line and then it's one word in the second line. So when I think of that, I think of two things. It's either A, how can we combine two of these short lines to make one so that we have more room? Or if a line's that short, am I giving enough detail? And if I'm not giving enough detail, what else can I say to, again, like, so when we think about the example with the fundraising activities, that's a super short line. This on a resume is probably a line and a half, maybe two full lines. So here, I'm not telling you a whole lot. Here I am. So again, I don't want to keep going too much, but with leadership versus ability to perform, those sorts of things, it just depends what specific examples can you have, what's something that you routinely do, and do you have the space for that? Does it make sense? And that's all stuff we can do one-on-one. That is a good question though. In terms of how do I come up with transferable skills, I just think about what I've done and what I'm doing. And the ones that we covered are the main, probably 8 to 10 common ones you're going to want to look at. That's a good question. Anyone else? Cool. So as we kind of wrap up, I just want to kind of highlight again, first step is pick a template design. We're going to walk through those here in a sec. The next step is you want to brainstorm your skills and experiences. When I write, I just have to get it all on the page and kind of blab it out. Like, I'm not very good at making my writing short, sweet, and concise at the start. So don't feel like you have to get it perfect as you go. Just get everything on the page, and then you'll start to be able to pick out things. Again, you can meet with us and we can help you pick out those things, ask the right questions to kind of pick out that information that you want to, convey. So that's the next part, is reviewing that, condensing the resume to a page. And then from there, it's, maintenance. So, to be honest, and I think Molly can attest to this, when you're starting from scratch, it might take us 2 or 3 meetings. It's probably going to take you an hour and a half or so, maybe 2 hours to really get it where you want it to go. But the nice part is after that, you're talking 5-6 minutes each time you need to make an update. So it's one of those things where just kind of go into it knowing it's a process. It's not something where you're going to submit that one time it's going to be perfect. Another thing I'll mention is you might get your resume approved in our process, and that is something that is now required for all you guys when you apply for jobs. But just because it's approved doesn't mean it's the best it could be. You definitely want to meet with an advisor. You definitely want to meet, with folks in your industry, alumni, talk to your parents, friends, colleagues, and get their opinions too. Think about it in terms of, you can have, C's get degrees, right? But a 2.0 GPA isn't getting you as far as a 3.6. So when you think about that, you can have an approved resume, doesn't mean it's the best it could be. All right. So definitely seek advice. And that's something, I'm almost 30 years old, and every time I apply for a job, I've shown my dad my resume because I need someone to look at it. So you're never too old, to have someone give you that advice. And then the last part is just customize each as needed for each application. So real quick, again, resources, Davidson. We have a resume guide. We have templates. We're going to walk through that in just a sec. The other thing is we have walk-ins and scheduled appointments for resume reviews. In terms of how to pick an appointment, you can do exploratory general. If you're searching for a job or a career and you have no clue what you want to do, you can meet with our exploratory advisor. If you're an athlete, you can meet with me, regardless of what industry you want to go with. If you know for sure you're interested in health sciences or you want to go to med school, we have advisors for that. So we basically, anything you want, you can meet with any of those advisors. And again, if you're not sure, just meet with our exploratory general. The other thing is on Handshake, and I'll show you this as well. We have walk-in appointments Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 or 8:45 to 5. So if you ever just have a quick question, you can just hop online, go into the Zoom room, and have your question answered right away. That's usually for 5 to 10 minute questions, maybe 15 minutes. If you need a full 30 minutes or an hour, you're just going to schedule a typical appointment, but just want to make sure you guys are aware of those. And again, we have 2 ambassadors on our call. You have other classmates. People are super willing to help. So just ask and they'll help you with that. So real quick, stop my share for a sec so I can pull up Handshake. So when you're in Handshake, this is what it looks like, right? So 2 things, again, appointments. You can click that button, schedule a new appointment, and then, you can pick whichever area makes the most sense for you. If you're really not sure, you can, you again, just go to the exploratory general. Don't pick a walk-in appointment. That's not really intended for you guys. That's more for us on the reporting end. Just pick one of these to schedule an appointment. For actual walk-ins, you'll go to the event. And then once you're in there, again, you could do resume, cover letter. It's going to look pretty similar in all those. To actually go to walk-ins, you just want to go to the events page. It's pinned at the top. It'll always be here. So you just click into it, you just register, and then, it'll tell you who's on the calls, for the different times. So like I typically have Friday mornings. These vary every now and then if we have scheduling conflicts or we're on vacation, but there's always someone on those calls to help. And I just saw Molly put her email in the chat as well, so I appreciate that. And so now for the template. So we go to Career Center. You see this big, nice button, resources. There's a ton of resources in here, but obviously for the sake of this, we want to go to the resume and CV writing guides. So we click into that. From here, this is an 8-page guide. It has a ton of information, a lot of what I've talked about tonight, but a little bit more concise. These are the 4 templates I showed you. You can download that as a Word doc. And if you're looking to write a CV, which I don't know if any of you guys are at this point, you can look at that. If you're wondering what's the difference between a resume and a CV, formatting wise, they're pretty much the same. The difference is that a CV is going to have more academia, more research, more presentations, and it's often going to be more than a single page. But the last thing I'll note, I forgot to mention the formatting part, is when you're doing a resume, please use Word and use like actual Word. It should be available through the college. Google Docs are great, but not for formatting. So if you're writing a paper, have at it. But when you're doing a resume and something you want to replicate and save and update, just trust me, Word doc is going to be the way to go. If you're having issues with that, just let me know. Not that you can't do it in Google Docs, but just trust me on that one. But on that note, let's see. Let's stop my share, get my PowerPoint back up here real quick. As I'm doing this, I'm pretty much wrapped up. If you guys have any questions, happy to answer those. I will be sending out a follow-up email that again will have the presentation. It'll have, everything you need. It'll also have a survey. I meant to put it in here for Molly to send to you guys, but I forgot. But please, if you get a chance, fill out that survey. All it does is make these sessions better. This is the first time I've done a first-year workshop for resumes, done 15 resume workshops. First time we've geared it towards you guys. So anything, you think you'd want to know or wish you had heard, feel free to put it on that survey. I will send that out tomorrow. On a secondary note, you can see here, these are all the events that we have lined up for the next 2 weeks. And on the right side, you'll notice we have a reward series. So for the first 100 people that, submit that, we have a couple prizes. So pretty cool if you ask me. I know I'm looking forward to get mine. But on that note, I appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for joining us. Again, there's a lot of people here to help, but I will stick on the call until all you guys log off. So if you have any questions, feel free to stick around. But have a good night and safe travels back to campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.